when you're constantly focused on things going well, even when you have little setbacks, you recover quicker because you don't have a victim mentality. You don't have a woe is me. Why did this happen? I'm so unlucky. You have like, okay, well, yeah, this unfortunate situation happened today, but I'll deal with it. Hey there, I'm Goli Kalkaran, and this is Lessons from a Quitter, where we believe that it's never too late to start over. No matter how much time or money you've spent getting to where you are, if ultimately you are not happy, then it's time to get out. If you're feeling stuck and you feel like there's gotta be more, there's gotta be a way to feel fulfilled and excited about what you do, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I will sit down with an inspiring guest who quit their professional career in order to forge their own path and create a life that they love. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again today. Welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. If you are new, it's going to be a little bit different on this episode. I typically do interviews. This week is a holiday in the US, and I figured I would save the episode for next week where we can get back to our regularly scheduled program. But I thought I would just check in. And I'm actually been thinking about doing more solo episodes and maybe doing episodes that are shorter of just me talking about issues that come up or questions people ask or talking about audience wins and things that you guys have shared with me, just things like that. So if you listen to this episode and you have a thought either way, trust me, I won't be offended. If you don't like them and you'd rather just have interviews, let me know. I am thinking about doing things a little differently in the new year, and I'm reevaluating what's going on with the podcast after about 6 months. So I would love to hear from you. You can mostly find me on Instagram at Lessons from a Quitter. You can send me a DM. You can also obviously find me through my website at Lessons from a Quitter or on any other platform. But I respond fastest to Instagram. So go ahead and find me. Let me know what you think, if you like it, if you don't, and what else you'd like from the podcast, what you would want me to cover, or if you have ideas for guests. I really want this to be what you guys need. So I'm all ears. Reach out to me. I love to connect with you guys. So like I said, this episode is going to just be me. Congratulations. No, I'm kidding. I wanted to check in, and this week it's all about Thanksgiving in America, and Thanksgiving is a really great time to think about all the things that you're grateful for. And we tend to do that, one day a year, but that's sort of what I wanted to talk about. And, it has become this like buzzword of like gratitude and doing these gratitude practices. But I really want to emphasize that a gratitude practice is one of the easiest things that you can implement in your life today, and it will fundamentally change your life. Now, that's not hyperbole. I'm not trying to do this for dramatic effect. It will change your life. I can basically guarantee it. The problem is that 99% of you that are listening to this or that hear about it won't stick with it. Some of you might do it for a day or two. Some of you might do it intermittently, like you'll do it for a couple of days and you won't do it for a week. And it doesn't work like that. Okay. Like the power in it is the compound effect, is when you're consistently doing it. And I'll explain why. But just know before we get in that I am telling you that you doing something for 5 minutes a day before you get out of bed or before you go to sleep that really does not take that much effort can completely change your life. So if that's what you're looking for, now we're coming up on the new year and it's all about new goals and all this stuff. And you're trying to figure out how you can get unstuck or how you can change where you are in your life. This is the easiest way. So I would really encourage you to look into it and try it. Give yourself 30 days and really be intentional of the fact that you want to stick to it. And if you don't see any change within 30 days, message me, because it's almost impossible. And you'll see why. It has fundamentally changed my life. And I considered myself a very grateful person. I thought I knew how blessed I was. And I didn't really realize how much a gratitude practice can affect me. So let's kind of dive in a little more about why. Now, there's been decades of scientific studies that have shown that people that practice gratitude, that regularly practice gratitude through journaling or whatever other way they do it, are more creative, have stronger immune systems. It literally keeps you healthier, have stronger relationships, have more energy, optimism, enthusiasm, alertness, and all of these amazing things. Like, while they're all great on their own, and you should want those things anyways in your life, think about the impact that that stuff has on the other things in your life, like your relationships, like your business, like your job, like your decisions of what to do, like having more energy, having more optimism, having all this stuff is what ends up helping you become successful in the things that you want to do. So the reason is, it's really straightforward. It's because it's all about perspective, right? We've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast. I will continue talking about it because it is all perspective, right? So, we all know this, like things that happen in our lives, they're not good or bad, right? We attach a meaning behind them. So for example, like when it rains, right? You can find two people at the same place that view the rain fundamentally differently. One person can be really grouchy about it and hate it and feel sad and feel depressed. Another person can love the rain and feel cozy and feel like it's, the start of fall and they're super excited about it. Obviously, the rain is the same thing, right? It's how you're looking at it. And so that's sort of the point of this, is that what happens in your life, you can look at it in two different ways, and how you look at it fundamentally will change how you react to things in your life, how you process things, how you can deal with them. And again, like I said, that will then affect how successful you become. So let's talk a little bit more about why that perspective shift does it. So a lot of times when people talk about gratitude, I think what comes to mind, or what everyone thinks, is it's going to be, these big things that you're grateful for. Like, I'm grateful for my health, or I'm grateful for my kids, or I'm grateful for my house. And those are obviously things to be grateful for. And those are like very like all-encompassing things. And the first week of you doing it, yes, it's you're kind of picking off the low-hanging fruit, right? You're thankful that you have loving parents, or you're whatever. What happens after that? Then every day you start searching for other things that you can be grateful for. And that is where the power in this comes, right? We're naturally wired, because of like evolution and fear and having to like survive. You're naturally wired to look at the negative things in your life, to focus on those things more. So for instance, when someone says, I had a bad day, or when you think you have a bad day, the reality of it is you had a bad 30 minutes. Okay, something happened that made your day bad. It wasn't the whole day. It was, you got in a car accident on the way to work, or you got to work late, or your boss chewed you out, or your kids didn't listen to you and weren't getting ready in the morning, or whatever it could be, right? The rest of the day has nothing to do with it, but it's already colored your vision of everything else, right? And so what happens is we focus on that. We focus on that one thing, and we tend to not see everything that goes right every day, right? The majority of our lives, things are going right, but they happen every day and they go right every day, so you don't notice them. This is like a perfect example of this is, you never really realize like how good it is, I guess, to be healthy until you become sick or you hurt yourself, right? Like you find muscles that you didn't even realize you have because your body was working properly. And so you didn't know you had that like random muscle in your back until you tweak it. And then you realize every movement is affected by that muscle, And so that's sort of the same thing, right? Every day you're doing things and things are going well. You're driving to work. You're not getting a ticket. You're not getting in an accident. You're not hitting some random person, you're getting to work on time, but you don't think about that, right? Because like that's the standard. And so what a gratitude practice does is it forces you to focus on those things. It forces you to see that that bad thing that happened was one thing in a million things that happen every day that are great in your life. And when you start shifting that perspective and you start looking for things, when you start seeing like, hey, today has been a great day. Like, oh, this person that I talk to every day that I don't really think about, let me think about how my relationship by just saying hello to this person in the office, like brightens my mood every day. I never think about it because it's just the receptionist and she's always there and I always see her. But like when she's not there one day, now I'm really grateful for the fact that I have a friendly face every time I walk into my office. And when you start becoming more aware, you'll start seeing more things. You start noticing every day all of the little things that are great in your life, that are going well, that you are blessed with. And that is when it becomes like this perspective shift. Again, why is that great? Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. That's the reality of it, right? Whatever you focus on, like that's where your life basically goes. That's where all of your energy is going to be. That's what's going to affect your relationships and everything else. And so when you're constantly focused on things going well, even when you have little setbacks, you recover quicker because you don't have a victim mentality. You don't have a woe is me. Why did this happen? I'm so unlucky. You have like, okay, well, yeah, this unfortunate situation happened today, but I'll deal with it because I have all this other great stuff in my life. And it's just this thing that's running in the background of your mind. And so you end up not being stopped by things that are bad. Okay. Like it's a speed bump and you move on. And that's one of the biggest things that they found with gratitude practices is that you can bounce back from adversity. We're all going to have things that come up. But if you can not make it a bigger deal than it is and just deal with it and move on, then you will have an easier time getting things done, like getting the important things as opposed to being stopped in your track because you got a ticket that day or whatever it may be. Number 2, the second reason a gratitude practice works is, and I think Tony Robbins points this out, is that it is impossible to be angry and fearful and be grateful at the same time. You could try it. Literally try it. The next time you are angry, try being grateful about 5 things and see how you cannot have those emotions simultaneously. We talk a lot about fear on this podcast. A lot of what happens when your mind is unchecked and you're not thinking about it and your subconscious is running in the background. It's constantly, this fear is growing. It is like compounding on itself because it's just like ruminating in the background. So you're thinking about jumping, you're thinking about quitting your job. And every fear that you have is just like running, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this debt? And how would I ever make the amount of money that I'm going to make? And what is my wife going to say? And how am I going to buy this stuff that my kids need or put them through school? And all this stuff keeps compounding, right? And it almost becomes unbearable. And that's why so many people stay, because there is just so many things to deal with. And when you're not dealing with it actively, but you're dealing with it passively, and it's just in the back of your head, you start becoming overwhelmed because you haven't taken any steps and you're just like thinking about all of the millions of things that you need to do, right? And so when you focus on gratitude, when you really focus on all of like the great things that you have, it diminishes the fear in your life. I mean, think about it. When you have been practicing gratitude and you're seeing like you really are present to the fact of how much support you have and what a loving family you have and how wonderful your spouse has been and how lucky you are to have your health and your kids' health and all this other stuff. When you start thinking about like the fear of, I don't know, like, are you ever going to get another job? Like it just sort of pales in comparison. You start thinking like, okay, well, I have all this other stuff. I have a family that's going to support me. And so I can deal with that. It gives you the tools to realize that you have way more positive things than you do negative. And so you don't need to blow that fear out of proportion. And so it helps just contain the fear that tends to get out of control in a lot of our minds. Okay, the third major reason that gratitude works, and it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason because it's true, is that it's not the destination, it's the journey. We all know this, right? We've heard this a million times and we've experienced it. We've always thought like, once I get X, then I'll be happy. Once I get to Y, then my life will all come together. And we all know it's not true, right? Like once I get the degree, then everything is going to be great. And then you get it and maybe it's exciting for a little while, but then that dies down and it's the next thing, right? Because there is no ultimate end goal. It's not like one day you're going to wake up and be like, now I'm happy and it'll just continue for the rest of my life like this and nothing will ever change. It sounds ludicrous when you say that, but I think a lot of times we work towards that. We think like, if I get this, then everything will be great. And I think that what gratitude does is really brings you back into the present and makes you realize that like you should be grateful for every part of the journey. This is much easier said than done. I get it. I go through this on a daily basis, even with this podcast. It's easy to get caught up in like, oh, once I get to X number of downloads, or once I have this many followers, or I think what a gratitude practice has done for me is really bring me back into like, this is the fun part, right? Learning and trying this and figuring out what kind of episodes I want to do and talking to different people and getting better at interviewing. Like that is the whole game, right? Ultimately, what happens with it, maybe it'll be beyond anything I can conceive. Maybe it'll die out, whatever it is. Like the journey is the part that I should really be focused on and that I should be grateful for. That's the same thing with anything we do, right? I hear a lot of people talk about, I don't know what my passion is. And I recently heard someone describe it on a podcast, and she was saying that your passion is not something you discover. It's not like hidden under a rock. It's something that you develop. And the development of that passion is the fun part, okay? It's trying different things, meeting like-minded people, practicing, learning, evolving. Like the whole process is the point of it. And when we're not conscious of it, it's very easy to constantly think about the future and to constantly think about when this happens, then it'll be great. And when you focus on gratitude, it brings you back to the present and it makes you really realize like, hey, how awesome is this? I get to go to this meetup group once a month and be with people that share their love of pottery or jewelry making or hiking or whatever it is. And that hopefully will turn into something else, and maybe that'll lead you to another job or a different career or a business or whatever. But being focused on just that moment, on that meeting, on being around people like that, that's what your life is going to be made of, So enjoying that is huge. And I think that is what gratitude does. It immediately brings you back into the present. And then one of the biggest things I've seen in the shift with gratitude for myself, and I've noticed, and I've read a lot about it, and I know that it helps, is that, the better attitude you have, the more pleasant you are to be around, the more it helps your relationships. And we all realize that like stronger relationships is really like the cornerstone of your happiness. So no matter what you're doing for a living, no matter, where you are in your life, like the better your relationships are, the happier you're going to be. Being around people that are pessimistic or victims or, always down is a really hard thing to be around. Now, I understand that people have a lot going on in life. And I'm not trying to say like always put on a smile on your face and always act like everything is great. Yes, sometimes life happens and life is hard. And there's a lot of times where you are very rightfully entitled to be grieving or to be sad. And we all have our emotions. And I don't in any way want to say like mask those emotions and act like you're happy. That's not the point of this. The point is that a lot of times very little things get blown out of proportion in our lives. And what this does is just kind of keep a check in to what is going well so that you're not focusing and ruminating on the things that are going bad. Now, if you have mental health issues or very severe issues that need to be dealt with professional help, you should always get that help. But I think this is more just for day-to-day life where we tend to get stressed out about a lot of things. We're tired, we're overworked. What gratitude does, like I said, is just help you focus on the good things, and that affects how your relationships work. Now, I recently was talking to another friend about how this has severely helped my relationships, not just because I'm a more pleasant person, but one of the things I've noticed is that when you focus on the negativity, it tends to become bigger than it is, right? Have you ever had that experience where like you're mad about something, let's say like your boss comes and tells you something, and by the 10th time that you've repeated the story to your coworkers, your friends, to your spouse, you're infinitely more angry, right? Like you're now just even appalled that he would ever dare talk to you in a certain way and whatnot. And what happens is like, I'm not saying that you don't have a right to be upset, but the more we focus on that, the more we blow it out of proportion, right? And the same thing happens with relationships. When you focus on even the little things, like the bad things about someone, whether it be your spouse or your kids or your in-laws or your friends or your coworkers, whatever, when you're constantly looking about like one thing that annoys you, that thing gets bigger and bigger. We've all experienced it where it's like, anybody else could do it. But when that person does it, it irks you to the point where like you want to scream, right? So what gratitude does is when you focus on what you're grateful for the people around you, you start seeing them in a different light. You start saying like, yeah, maybe my husband didn't put the dishes away, even though I've asked him like 10 times. And you can sit and focus on that. But when you start looking like, oh, look how nice it was that he did X, or look how much time he spends playing with the kids, or look at how he did this thing because he knows that it means a lot to me. And when you start focusing on all that stuff, that builds on itself too. And so it creates stronger bonds. It creates stronger relationships. It stops you from being annoyed about these things all the time and letting little things go so that you can focus on the bigger things. And in the end, it dramatically changes your relationships. So with all that said, my wish for you during this Thanksgiving week is, since it's a perfect time to start gratitude practice, and we are all right now focused on what we're grateful for, why not give yourself a challenge of the next 30 days until New Year's? Try a gratitude practice. Just every night before you're going to go to sleep, write down 3 things you're grateful for, or every morning, and really pick a time that it's going to work for you, that you know you're going to stick to it. And if it doesn't work after a month and a half, then quit. Okay. But I guarantee you that it will. So take 5 minutes and see how it can fundamentally change your life. And I hope it does. And let me know if it does. If you do it, or even if it doesn't, let me know how it goes. I would love to hear how this stuff works for you guys. And on that note, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week with another episode. Thank you so much for listening. I can't tell you how much it means to me. If you liked the podcast, please rate and review us on iTunes. It'll help other people find the show. If you want to connect or reach out, follow along on Instagram and Facebook at Lessons from a Quitter and on Twitter at Quitter Podcast. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.